Hello, my name is Daryl, and I'm here to bring you an art lesson for you to do at home. Hopefully you may have some of these supplies at home. I'm calling this project Sunset Pines. The first thing that I did was with crayon. And if you notice, it's just a regular pack of 24 crayons. And here's the example of what it could look like. The steps are all going to be the same no matter what medium you're using. The second one is just with markers, and here is the finished project with markers. It's pretty simple. Both of those are done on construction paper. The third example that I've done is with acrylic paints, and that takes a little bit more time. And those are just acrylic paints that you can buy at your local craft store. These you can get at Michael's, or you can get them at Hobby Lobby. You can even get them at Walmart, and they're not that expensive. This one was $2.99, but you can get smaller bottles as well, and that's done on a white canvas. But today what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give you an example with watercolors. And most people have watercolors at home, so I thought that would be a fine example for today. I'm using just a regular 8-pack of watercolors. They're Crayons, which I like Crayons because their color is a lot more vivid. You can buy these even at the grocery store. And then I'm using 3 different types of brushes. If you only have one type, that's fine, a small one, but it will take you longer. I've got a small, medium, and a large. If you have a small and a medium, or a small and a large, that would work as well. They don't have to be expensive brushes. Paper towels, of course, for your messes. And then I've got a cup of water, and I always just put a very small amount of water in there because it's less to spill. I've got this on watercolor paper. You can use construction paper, you can use computer paper, you can use tag board, whatever you chose. But I went ahead and taped this off just because I like to have a little bit of a frame around my watercolors. To start off, what we're going to do is we're going to put the sunshine on there. And the way I did it is I just use painter's tape. If you have masking tape, that will work as well. And I just put that together. Now, before you put tape on any kind of surface, you do what you call fuzz. And I'll show you what that means. So first I'm just going to cut my sunshine out, and I'm just going to use a circle. I'm just going to cut it out. And it does not have to be perfect. Whether you're using crayon, watercolor, markers, or acrylics, all of these steps are exactly the same. So you just use your own medium, which is the splice. So what you do is you fuzz it, and what you do is you just put it on your material. And 1, 2, and then that way it doesn't pull the paper when you pull it off. So there's my sun. I'm just going to put that right in the middle of my masterpiece. There we go. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to wake up our paints. Whenever you're painting with watercolor, I choose to paint the light colors first. That way my water remains pretty clean. So what we're going to do is we're going to wake up the paint. And the way I do it, I'm going to use my medium brush, is I just put my paintbrush in the water, and I just do 1, 2, 3. And I do what I call tickle the paint. So what I'm doing is I'm waking it up and I'm tickling it. Tickling it is just kind of squishing it around. You don't want to push too hard because you don't want to break the cake. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the sky. And the sky is a sunset. So the lighter colors are toward the sun. And here's my yellow. And I'm just going to use some strokes back and forth. And I am going to leave some white showing. And I'm just going back and forth. I'm going to wash my brush off, and now I'm going to wake up that orange. 1, 2, and 3. The more water you use, the lighter the color. The less water you use, the darker the color. Now, because I'm painting upright, there's going to be a tendency to drip. So if you're painting upright, be aware of that. Otherwise, just go ahead and paint downward. And I like the yellow and the orange to be mixing together. That's called bleeding. We want it to bleed together. See, I'm getting a few drips here and there. And I'm making sure that the white is showing through as well because I want it to. I want to use that white to my advantage. Okay, and then I'm going to wake up my red. 2, 3. And now I'm going to finish out my painting with the red. Now, can I go back in and change some colors? Of course I can. So now I'm going to finish it out with the red. Let me just put this down a little bit so you can see the paints. There we go. Okay, I'm going to finish it out. Watercolors are fun because the bleeding is kind of magical. And I want to put some yellow on top of that because I want to kind of blend that yellow into the red. And again, I'm using the yellow on top of the red. And notice it's kind of blending it together. I'm kind of using the yellow to smear it, I guess you would call it. I don't want to go too close to my sun because I want to keep that pretty yellow. Now there's techniques with watercolor. If I let this dry on and I paint over the top of it, then it will it'll stay apart. But when you're painting it while it's wet on wet, it bleeds together and I just think it's magical. Okay, I'm happy with that. Okay, we want that dry. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start painting our water. So I'm going to wake up the blue. Blue is a much stronger color than the yellows. So I'm going to use that very watered down at first, and then I'll start adding some more color. Now if I were to touch the blue and the orange together, it would bleed, and I don't want that. So I'm going to leave a little bit of some room in between because I don't want that to bleed together, and my mountains are going to go ahead and cover that up. So right now, I'm just making my ocean, and I'm going to use again the white to my advantage because I want the white streaks to stay in there. I can't paint the white, but I can leave some. And there are some tricks with watercolor that you can use rubber cement, and you can use tape to keep the white on there, but we're not going to do that today. That's a little bit too technical for a quick paint. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose to put some purple in there. I think that might look kind of cool. So I'm going to put some purple. Now purple, of course, is much stronger, and notice because it's wet, it's going to bleed. And I want that to happen. I want the purple to bleed in with the blue. Look at that, isn't that cool? But I want to keep some of those white streaks going. And what's cool about watercolor, it is magical. It really is. And notice how it's bleeding down because gravity is taking it away. So what I need it to do now is to dry, because if I put other colors on top of it, they will bleed. So we're going to go ahead and let that dry. Another technique that you can use if you don't have a lot of time is a hair dryer. But since I have a pause button, I'm going to go ahead and push pause for a second. Okay, so my painting is now dry. And I did want to mention too that when you're doing the other paintings like the crayon or the marker or the acrylic, you can touch the horizon line with each other. But in the watercolor, you don't want to because, like I said, it will bleed. So I'm now finished with my medium brush, and I'm going to put that aside. And now I'm going to wake up my black. Black is a very strong color, and it will take over. It will go right over the top of everything, and that's what we're hoping that it's going to do. So I'm waking it up and giving it a tickle. And please make sure that your watercolor is dry before you start the black, because it will bleed into the rest of the colors. So I'm going to start by just giving myself a horizon line first. Here's my horizon line, and I am using the smaller brush. Don't need to use as much water because the black, like I said, is so strong. I'm going to go ahead and just outline my mountain, and then I'm going to fill it in. And like I said, I'm not using as much water, so it's painting a lot different than what my other watercolors were doing. It goes right over the top of the other watercolors too, which is kind of nice. And because I taped it off, I can go right to the edge. If you did not tape yours off, it's no problem. It's absolutely no problem. The only thing that's really important that you tape off is the sunshine, because you want to make sure that no paint goes in that sun as of yet. So you can paint right over the top to give it a more natural looking sky. Sky does not stop where the sun starts. So there we go. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to outline my other hill, which comes over here. But I'm now going to paint it in with brown. So now I've got to wake up the brown. I'm going to paint that right over the top of that. And it's okay that the black bleeds in, but we want that to right here. I want that black to bleed into the top of that brown. And the only place I don't want it to bleed is right next to the mountain. So there we go. Beautiful. There we go. Get those little patches right there. I'm going to wash my brush off. And now I'm going to go in with my red. And it's already been woken up. And I'm going to do kind of a Mount Fuji type pattern, I guess you call it, or mountain. And it's just, I'm going to fill that in as well with the red. I'm going to bump it right up against the brown and the black, and hopefully no bleeding. Notice I've got some drips. And if you want to wait in between each one of these steps for it to dry, no problem. Again, exactly the same steps, whether you're using marker, acrylics, watercolor, or crayon, whatever you've got at home. Okay, there's my red. And what I am going to do is I'm going to give it some depth. So I'm going to use a little tiny bit of the brown, and I'm just going to give it some depth right here. And that is going to bleed, and it's going to drip, and it's kind of going to look cool. There we go. I like that. Okay, then we have to let that dry, of course. So let me give it a pause real quick. Okay, I just finished blow drying it, and you guys can step away and let it dry. So make sure that it's completely dry before you go on to the next step. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start the pines. And those are fun. We're going to be using black again. And I'm waking it up again because it kind of dried out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is kind of do like a U shape down here. Okay, and I'm going to fill that in with black. Fill this in with black. There we go. And now we're going to start with what's called the silhouette of the pines. We want to fill it in completely, making sure that there's no white showing. Same steps with all different materials. So this would be colored in with crayon or with marker if that's what you're using, or acrylic paints. And here we go. Now we're going to start with the pines. And the pines are a basic step for each one, as it is a straight line. And it's like a Christmas tree, where they get larger as you go down. So it's kind of like a Christmas tree. Then what you're going to do is you're going to start kind of scribbling on them almost. Well, you're just going to scribble a little bit at the top. You're going to scribble off to the side. And you don't want it to be solid. You want it to have air in between so you can see the water. And you're just going to lightly scribble on top of it. And you'll kind of get the hang of it. You kind of get your own technique going after a while. And I'm just scribbling on top of it. Just a scribble, scribble, scribble. Same thing with the crayons, same thing with the markers, same thing with the acrylics. So it's just kind of a scribble. And maybe you want a taller one here. Same thing. You want to just make sure that your watercolors aren't too watery so that it drips. And again, a little scribble at the top. Give yourself some branches, getting bigger as you go down. And we're going to scribble on it. We're not going to push hard on our brush. We're just going to go lightly on our brush. And I'm just scribbling. Now there may be a time when you think, oh, maybe I need one more extra branch. Just stick it in there. Trees are not symmetrical usually. Although when we look one for Christmas, we want a symmetrical one. But I think they're probably trimmed. I don't think they come out of the forest exactly like that. Now what I did too is I just continued down into the mountain there, because I just wanted to make sure that it still looked as if it was natural. And again, another one. Well, maybe I'll put a taller one right there. That would look kind of cool. Again, bigger as you go down. And you just overlap the other trees too. I'll scribble at the top, scribbles on all the way down. And it's like you end up kind of finding your own technique and how much pressure to put on your brush. We still want to see the water through it. I did a painting the other day that had some pines in it. And I need to go back and fix them because I found one that was just way too short. And it's really bothering me. So I've got to go back and fix it. But you can go in there, you can, put an extra branch in here or there after you step back and look at it. I'm going to scribble on both sides here. And remember to scribble underneath because the tree just doesn't stop. It has to keep going. So make sure you scribble underneath so that you have some sort of depth there. It's hard to see, but when you're working on it, you'll be able to figure it out. And again, go all the way up. And the reason why we want to make sure that it's dry again is because we don't want it bleeding into the mountain. We have a little bit too much water on that one. You go right off the page too. This will be a bigger tree. And a nice scribble. That's going in there. And I'm just using the tip of my brush. I'm kind of getting my own technique going as I'm learning as I go. So I'm just using the tip of my brush rather than the whole brush. Dipping in the water every once in a while to make sure that I've got a nice dark black. And scribbling, scribbling, scribbling. Go all the way down and scribble down here too, because you want to make sure that your trees keep on going. I need more right there. Okay, let's see. Do I go taller or shorter over here? Let's see. Maybe I'll do a taller one right there. And I want to make sure that I'm not real symmetrical. In other words, a tall one, a tall one, a tall one, a short one. I don't want to be matchy-matchy. I want to make sure that there's some interest in my painting. So I want to catch the onlooker off guard, where they're thinking, oh, there's a tall one there. It should have been a short one. You want people to look at your painting and ask questions as you're telling your story. Every painting is a story. I have a couple sayings that some of my students at the Young Artists Academy at Vision Quest hear me say often. And that is that there's only one wrong way to do art. And they could finish my sentence for the only wrong way to do art is not to do it. And that's very true. This project can be done by both adults or children. It's a pretty simplistic one. You can make it as difficult as you want depending upon the supplies that you use. Let's see, a short one maybe? What do you think? Maybe a short one right here. Yeah, I think so. And also there's another saying that I have, and that is an artist knows when to stop. Sometimes you just want to keep painting, but your project is over. So just get yourself another piece of paper and start painting if you really need to paint some more. Because I need to make this one a little bit taller. And sometimes you can overdo a painting. Don't forget to scribble underneath. Okay, and I think I'll do a half a tree right here. Just do one right there. I'm still connecting the outside there, but the tape is going to stop it. Okay. Kind of fun. We're almost done. Scribble, scribble. And don't forget to scribble down here. It's always good to step back and look. All right, I'm satisfied with that. One last thing you have to do with the black is this hill is just a little bit, needs a little edge on it, little trees that are sticking up from afar. So just put some lines and some scribbles on there. The reason why I waited to do that was because I didn't want it to bleed into the red. There we go. Now it's really important that you wash off your brush really well right now because you've got the black on there. And let's go ahead and unveil our sun. And this part is up to you. You can either leave it like that, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow in there still. And because I don't want to get up and wash my, there we go. I've still got quite a bit of it. I'm just going to put a few little lines in my sun just to kind of give it some more character. There we go. And voila, we are finished. The last thing that an artist needs to do is to sign it. And when it dries, I'm going to pull the tape off and it will have a nice white frame around it. And I'll show you in just a second. I'm going to pause and let it dry. So now I'm pulling off the tape because I blow dry, and it's now nice and dry. And see how that taping off kind of gives that a really nice frame. And the last thing I need to do is sign it. But I did realize too that when I was looking at the marker one, I had left the sunshine on there. So I thought I'd finish that off for you as well. And that's with the markers. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the tape off of that one, and I fuzzed it so it's not going to pull the paper off. And again, you can just leave it like that, or you can put a few yellow lines in there, which I'm going to do, just kind of make it look a little bit more realistic. And voila. That is the marker one. That is finished. This is the crayon one. And all the steps are exactly the same. And here's the acrylic one. Again, every step is the same. So I hope you enjoyed the painting session that we had together today, and I will do another. Thank you.